Hello, everyone, and welcome to our talk today on optimizing game development workflows using Visual Studio and AI. My name is Greg Denton. I'm a principal product manager on the Xbox Experiences and Commerce team, working on data and AI solutions for game creator workflows.
And I'm David Lee. I'm a senior product manager in Microsoft's Visual Studio team, working on game developer workflows. Thank you for everyone for joining us at Pure Virtual C++. We're both very excited to show off new improvements for game developers built right into Visual Studio. We got an action-packed agenda for you today. First, we'll start off by sharing the latest performance updates with Visual Studio. Then a quick look into build insights and how it can help you optimize your build. Finally, we'll take you on a journey using Unreal Engine 5's Lyra sample project to showcase the latest features made for C++ game development and how you can leverage GitHub Copilot as your personal AI pair programmer.
All right, so David, I hear a lot of talk about developer productivity and a focus on maximizing creator efficiency and how important that is for game development. Obviously, we all want to be as efficient as possible, but when we talk about developer productivity in the context of game development, what is it that we're really talking about?
Well, there is no really single definition or metric for developer productivity. It depends on the context and goals of the project that you set for yourself. But generally, we talk about developer productivity, we're referring to how well a developer or a game creator can produce a high quality game given time and resources. In game development, we face unique challenges in creating immersive and engaging games for various platforms and audiences.
And what are some things we can focus on to improve dev productivity for game creators?
For game development, it's critical that we minimize friction in the workflow and help you reduce context switching. We want to empower all of you who can stay in the zone. We know that when you're in your flow, you're way more productive. So, in essence, you can efficiently use your time and energy to focus on hard problems and creative solutions. Our goal is to have our tools be a natural extension of your developer workflows. If we can help you improve your creative efficiency, we can then empower you to improve the cost of development, the quality you can put in, and your satisfaction as a developer by reducing frustrations in the tools, and ultimately improving the success of your game. That's why we're focused on creating more productive tools to empower all game developers.
And when you're referring to tools in this context, are you just referring to Visual Studio?
Coming from Visual Studio, where our mission is to empower developers, it's a part of it, but not all. We're working across many teams in Microsoft to partner and bring together the best experiences for game developers. Between Visual Studio, GitHub, Azure, Windows, and of course, Xbox, we have various technologies that cover the different aspects of game development. And bringing everyone together is how we can empower you to build great games.
And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Getting the game out, knowing it's the best quality game that you could produce given the time and resources that you have. So, obviously, Visual Studio is in the title of this session. What is it that Visual Studio is doing to improve developer productivity?
In Visual Studio, we are focused on providing the best experiences for both your inner and outer loops. Whether it's design time productivity features, top of the class debugging experience, speeding up your build times, or middleware integration. We're committed to focus on areas that are most important according to your feedback. Now, every year we receive a ton of feedback through various channels, from social media to surveys to interviews and developer community. I want to thank everyone who has left us a comment. It is thanks to all of you, this amazing community that powers Visual Studio to build tools that empower you. So without further ado, let's get started by sharing the latest update to Visual Studio performance. In the past, we have been continuously making strides to improve the speed and reliability of VS. This year is no different. I'm happy to share that we have made great progress on speeding up the colorization of your code so that you can get to code much faster. Not only that, we have also focused on getting the debugger up and running faster. In the latest version of Visual Studio, we have made changes to boost F5 speed. And of course, these changes affect large projects like games the most. We have started benchmarking our scenarios using large projects such as Unreal Engine, as well as a handful of our internal games. But this is not all. As you can see here, we have also improved MSVC's link time code generation builds by speeding up the build time. As you can see on the graph, a variety of popular AAA games have enjoyed great benefits, especially AAA game number 1. We have decreased the build time from 3,000 seconds all the way down to 1,000 seconds.
It's always a great time to upgrade to the latest MSVC compiler, but with these kind of improvements this year, it's really a good reminder to make sure that you're on the latest version so you're getting these improvements.
Exactly. And if these improvements are not enough, there's always a little bit more you can squeeze out by taking a deeper look into how your build behaves. Last year, we have integrated Build Insights into Visual Studio. It's a perfect tool to dive deep into your build processes. Let's have a look. So as you can see here, we have a ETL trace file already opened up. This has several tabs, such as include files, include tree, and functions. These tabs will help you take a look into your code and see what expensive things are causing your build to slow down. And if you want to run Build Insights, just go to the Build menu and go down to Run Build Insights. So you can capture a trace all from within Visual Studio. Once your trace is captured, you can see there is headers and there's some other files listed, but pay attention to the flame icons on the left. These indicate if a particular header takes more than 10%, indicating, hey, maybe you should take a closer look into this. Then, if you want to see what files are affected, you can open up headers.h using the little triangle on the left so that you can see all your files who are including headers.h. So we got over 200 parse count with almost all CPP files, including this headers.h. Okay, so let's just pick one such as monster.cpp. All right. Right when your file loads, there's a light bulb saying, hey, include headers.h is dimmed. This is because it's not used in this file. So Visual Studio will now suggest some fixes with include cleanup. There's a few options with the light bulb, but you can always right-click and go into include directives. The fix we recommend is optimize include graph for this file. When you click it, Visual Studio will help you out by giving only the headers that you want to include, only the necessary headers in order to really reduce the build time. And rinse and repeat. Try that out for all of the different indications that your trace shows. And at the end of it, it will really reduce your build time. So currently we have included files, include tree, and functions, but in the latest Visual Studio previews, VS 2022-1710, we have also added templates view. So you can see your template instantiation time. All right. Now that we have seen some performance improvements and tools to speed up your dev cycle, let's take a look at some of the other productivity boosters. Great. Let's talk about how everyone can modernize their game development workflows with the Visual Studio and Copilot.
All right, so interest in AI across industries has been growing over the past few years. This year at the GDC, the Game Developer Conference, you literally couldn't walk 20 feet without some booth, talk, or showcase, mentioning AI. And when it comes to software development, what I'm really interested in and really excited for is GitHub Copilot and what it can do. And specifically, what GitHub Copilot running inside Visual Studio and being used for game development purposes, what it can do. So we know building games is an incredibly complex and time-consuming undertaking. And the best games often come out of a deep passion for creating great player experiences, creative visuals, gameplay, and storytelling. And that's not to mention the huge amount of technical skill that it takes to bring that vision to life. And people are at the center of this, bringing in their own interests, their passions, their experiences. But as with any kind of software development, games run into technical challenges, and it takes energy to overcome those technical hurdles. And sometimes we have to spend hours or days trying to figure out a solution to these kind of problems. And the process is very similar to research. It's pulling together multiple sources of information, from places like the internet, talking with other developers, and then ultimately moving forward on whatever that best solution is. And that's really where I see GitHub Copilot being used as this super powerful tool to assist developers.
That's right. Think of Copilot as your pair programmer that's sitting right next to you. Copilot is that handy helper that is built right into the IDE. When you have a problem or when you need some more insights about code, it's there to help you. It will help provide more information and suggest possible solutions.
So does that mean I can just use GitHub Copilot then to write all the code for my project?
Well, you could try, but that's not what Copilot is designed to do. It's far better to use the Copilot chat for situations where you might ask someone else, or when you're researching some bugs that you have a million tabs open just to look for your answers. And of course, as you're typing code, Copilot can suggest multi-line completions that will really accelerate your development and cut down the time it takes to write code.
And since it's all right there in your IDE, as a developer, you can stay in your dev flow. There's not that context switching you were talking about and jumping between different applications to gather information. Everything's available right alongside your code. And within the scope of Visual Studio, Copilot knows about the context that you have open and what it is you're working on.
Yeah, and that leads to developers increasing productivity and having more energy to focus on what matters, the creative areas of game development. That is our intention, empowering you with productivity. Now, before I begin, I want to emphasize that GitHub Copilot does not learn on your code base. And Copilot will work regardless of your source control system. Whether you're using GitHub or Perforce, Copilot will work just fine. So let's open a project and see for ourselves. Imagine you just got handed a code base that you're not too familiar with. You're trying to get things to build, but you also got assigned a task to implement another mechanism into this section of the game. So let's see how this works in Visual Studio and how the tools and GitHub Copilot can really help.
Okay, so I have Visual Studio open here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is just kick off a build. I just want to see, is this project actually working as I would expect? And we're using the Lyra demo game setup from Unreal Engine 5.3. And I'm going to level with you. It's been a little while since I've done any kind of C++ dev, so definitely go easy on me.
That's all right. I'm not the best at C++ either, but we can walk through this together.
I don't know if it's just the screen recording or what is making it go so much slower. Okay, so it looks like we have a few build errors here. Let's go ahead and close that, and we'll take a look at what our problems are. So I can tell I have a unresolved external symbol and some sort of linker error, but I don't really recognize any of the references that it has here. Is this the type of thing that I can use Copilot to help me troubleshoot and get to the bottom of?
Yeah, this is a great example of how Copilot can help with whatever context it has been provided. So if you feed it the error message, we should see recommendations on how to troubleshoot. You can either open up the Copilot chat window in the view menu, or with the hotkey Control/, then C.
All right, so we'll open up Copilot chat, and like you're talking about, I'll just ask it, how can I fix this build error? All right. And I copied and pasted in the error that we were getting, just so that way Copilot fully knows what it is that we're referencing when we say what this build error is. So Copilot has responded, and it's confirming that we have a linker error. And it seems like we're trying to use the physical material in our code, which is part of the physics core module, but that module is not included in our dependencies right now. It's given us, a preview of what our dependencies should look like, and there's a message in here to uncomment this line. So if we go back over to our build script, we can see that, physics core is commented out. So all we have to do is remove that comment and run our build again. And provided that that was the only problem, this build should run without any issue. All right, so the build's just kicking off right now, and the debugger pops open. So presumably our project is building fine, and we'll go ahead and stop the debugger before Unreal Engine fully loads up. All right, so we have a working project now. Now we need to figure out, what do we have to do to enable the task we've been given. In our scenario, we have a character that's landing on the edge of a ledge. And whenever they land right on the edge, the character's getting stuck a little bit. So what we want to do is just artificially nudge them forward a little bit when they land from a jump. So I am going to need to find my character class. That's likely where I will want to insert the code for this kind of behavior. How can I quickly find my character class?
So to go to your character class, we can actually use the new all-in-one search in Visual Studio. This new search window will let you search both code and features within VS. You can press Control T or just using the search button on the top menu. Now let's open it up and search for a Lyra character. One of the things that you see right away is additional filters such as files, types, and members. But you can always use the hotkey, Control-Shift-T, to pre-select the filter as you are searching. All right, so we have Lyra character.cpp, and there's also Lyra character.h. One of the things that you see new here is the new code preview window. This has full colorization. You can do additional navigation, editing, and some basic refactoring options. If you right click, you can see rename, go to dev, go to declaration, and other handy features. So this is great if you're just looking for code and you don't necessarily need to open up a million tabs. Let's go a step further by showing everyone how they can customize this preview window. So you can go to the top right, and the preview window can go horizontally or vertically, or you can hide it altogether. All right,
Cool.
now we're in Lyra character.h. This is probably the file that we want, so let's go into this file.
All right. So we've opened up our Lyra character.h, and being new to a project, the first time I open a new file, the thing I want to do is read it, understand what that class is, what it's inheriting from, what its different components are, things like that. And Copilot's really good at being able to tell us exactly that. It can read our code, infer its intent, and give us a good summarization. So let's use Copilot chat. And over here, there's two buttons. The first one is the slash, and it allows us to specify a command we want to feed Copilot. In this case, we just want to have it explain our code. So we'll choose the explain, but some of the other options here are things like being able to ask specific questions about Visual Studio, generate documentation, generate code, fix various issues in your selected code, as well as creating unit tests. So we'll select explain, and then we'll need to tell it what we want it to explain. If we hit the pound sign, we get a list of different references we can provide. In this case, we just want to provide the active document that we have open, the Lyra character header. And now we have our prompt, which is just explain this Lyra character header file.
Yeah, this is very helpful whenever you're working with new code that you might be unfamiliar with. Or for example, you just hired a new person on your team. It really helps people ramp up to the code base, and Copilot can provide an overview to help you get your bearings.
All right. So Copilot's responded back. It gives us, just a good overview of what the character class is, that it's, a pawn class for our project, and gives us some information about the different components, what it inherits from, what its interfaces are, module or methods and properties, and replication. So this is all just super helpful information to help orient me on this code the first time I'm reading it.
Yeah, and we can actually go a step further by asking Copilot to add comments for us. If we were to scroll down a little bit more to some of the U functions, we can then ask Copilot to write comments. So let's show another way of interacting with Copilot. This time around, you can highlight the functions that you want comments for, then right-click and open up Copilot Chat this way.
Right. Yeah, this is super handy if I don't want to open up an entirely new panel and I just want a quick Copilot chat window based off whatever code I have selected. So if we wanted to add a doc string for this Lyra player controller, we can add the documentation command, and we can tell it to generate detailed docs for this function, and we'll tell it to use Doxygen style. All right, so Copilot gives me this handy little diff window, and we can see that it added in a comment, and so we'll accept, and everything looks like it's formatted properly, and looks like it is in fact using Doxygen style. So what does that get me in Visual Studio?
Yeah, Visual Studio has great support for Doxygen comments. And very recently, we have added support so that if you have an overloaded function, that all the definitions will show up. So for example, you have one single comment, but you hover over subsequent overloaded functions. Now you can see the comments being applied for all the functions are overloaded.
Very cool. All right. So that's definitely handy, but it doesn't help us solve our problem of implementing this landed function that we need. I believe that our class, our Lyra character class, actually already has a function that it inherits that gets called whenever the character lands from a jump. Let's see if Copilot can help us. And we'll ask it to explain, does this class is subclass have a function that is called whenever the character lands from a jump?
So this is a very interesting prompt, since here we're not asking for a specific function, but asking about the capability of code. Copilot can answer this because it knows about the intent of the code. This is far more than just a text search.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like if you look at the prompt we actually gave it, we're referencing the class that we want, but we're actually really asking about the functionality of the code, not just code names or any kind of reference points that would be based on text search. It's really the intent that it understands and is responding to. So Copilots come back, and it says that the Lyra character class as provided doesn't have any kind of function that's called. However, it's suggesting that in Unreal Engine, a lot of the character or pawn classes often have a landed function. So as long as that's likely inheriting from one of those locations, we'll probably have that landed function. So if we want to override the landed function and use that, it's gone ahead and provided us with an example of what the definition would look like, as well as what a implementation would look like in the CPP file. So let's go ahead and just copy the definition here, and we'll jump down and just drop it into our code at this point. All right, so this gives us a landed definition. now I'm going to need to do the implementation. So I need to jump over to the CPP file. How can I do that?
Yeah, a quick and easy way, for those of you that might not know, you can actually hold Control, press K, and then O. This will allow you to quickly switch between CPP and header files.
Oh, yeah. So even though I didn't have the CPP file open, it understood that I was in the header and opened up the CPP for me. That's great. All right. So now if we're scrolling down, see, I'm noticing that these braces have a lot more color than I'm used to. What's going on?
Yeah, this is the new brace pair colorization feature that is meant to give you additional useful context, especially when you have nested functions. And another complementary feature that is just like brace pair colorization is, as you can see on top of the editor window, there is a sticky scroll. Both of these features work very well together when you have deeply nested functions that really need some additional context. And this is very useful, so you don't have to constantly scroll up and down or have to guess where you are in a nested function.
Yeah, I can see this being super helpful if you have different functions that are, you know, multiple pages long and lots of different nesting going on. It can just get super confusing trying to remember what level of indentation you're at. So having those sticky lines stay up here at the top in blue is definitely handy for that.
Exactly. All right, so let's go back to our task at hand, and we were just about to implement this function. Let's show a third way you can interact with Copilot in Visual Studio, and that is directly through inline comments. Let's start typing a comment of what we want the code to do.
All right, so I'll just do a comment saying we want an implementation of landed that matches the character forward to avoid getting stuck on ledges. All right. So you saw Copilot was actually already making suggestions based on what I was typing in that comment. It didn't get it right until the very end, but it's always helpful having those different suggestions. So once I press enter, Copilot's going to suggest what it thinks the next thing that I want it to type is. And in this case, it's the full implementation of this landed function. So I can hit tab to go ahead and accept its suggestion. You can see that it recognized that landed is an overridden function. So it's going ahead and calling super, and it's giving me a simple basic implementation of the behavior we want. Basically, we're figuring out the forward vector and then nudging it forward a little bit based off that location. There's one thing that I don't particularly like, which is this hard-coded float here. What we can do instead is make this a variable, and we'll just call it nudge amount. And I know that I'm going to want my this amount to be exposed as a blueprint variable, but honestly, I have no idea how to do that. Do you think Copilot can help us out with some of the more Unreal Engine specific capabilities, like around blueprints?
Yeah, this is a very good scenario of how Copilot can help in a very specific context, in this case, Unreal Engine. Let's ask Copilot how we can expose this to a blueprint.
All right. So let's just ask, how can I expose nudge amount as a blueprint? All right, we're using the explain command here just so that way Copilot knows that we just want to helpful information. And notice I didn't say anything about like what type of blueprint we're talking about or anything. We're really just leaving it up to Copilot to understand. So hopefully it recognized that we're actually talking about Unreal Engine blueprints. And looking at the response, it does look like it was able to pick up what we meant by our question and is giving us information on what we need to do to make this variable available as a blueprint. We're going to need to define it using the uProperty macro and set what the specifiers are that we ultimately want for it. So here's an example of what we might need. We can go ahead and copy this. And the rest of the message gives us more information on what these different specifiers are and what they mean. But we're going to need to jump back to our header file to define our nudge amount. So we'll use Control KO once again to switch back to the header file. That's a super handy shortcut to have. And then we can just paste in our nudge amount. We'll not pay too much attention to where it's located right now for the purpose of the demo, but now we should have a uProperty that's going to be a blueprint read write. But I'm noticing that we get these three little dots at the beginning of our nudge amount variable. What is that trying to tell me?
So this is part of the Unreal Engine specific code analysis that is available in Visual Studio. We are now looking at your code to see if other variable names conform to the UE naming convention. And if it doesn't, we'll give you a handy light bulb suggesting you, hey, maybe you should change this to follow the naming convention. If you go through light bulb, as you can see here, it shows you what should be named instead. When you click on the apply naming convention, the rename refactoring dialog will show up. Now this will take you through all the code and find all the places that you have this variable name. So when you rename, it is applied to all the proper locations. So let's hit apply.
So yeah, you can see now it capitalized nudge here in our header file. And if we just jump back to the CPP, we can see the same is happening there. All right. So as we scroll down, one of the other things that I'm noticing is these changed in blueprint. Can you talk to me about what this is telling me?
Yeah, this is one of the features that we have added lately, blueprint references. Whenever you're working with your designers, perhaps you're at a stage where you're getting ready to refactor some of these blueprints out. It's a very handy feature that lets you see the blueprint references. So you don't have to keep going back to the Unreal editor to search and see all your references. And very recently, starting with Visual Studio 2022 17.9, we have removed the dependency to parse blueprints from our UE plugin. We are gradually rolling out this feature, so not all of you would have it, but in the coming weeks, you should have this dependency removed. And all that means is you can just open up VS in the Unreal Engine project, and all of your blueprints will be parsed. A good way to see it is if you see it in the Unreal Engine integration log, it was Visual Studio will say parsing blueprints. And that is a good indication of like, hey, we don't need our UE plugin anymore.
All right, cool. So if we close that down, I think there's a couple more properties that we want to add that are related to the health and the function of landing and jumping, right?
Yeah, So let's continue by adding some more mechanisms and introduce the fall damage. We are here at Ulara health component, so let's go over there by going to go to dev.
So now we've jumped into our Lyra health component, and I think we could scroll all the way down towards the bottom. And we're just going to want to add two new properties, right? So we can use the Copilot functionality that we've already shown, which is just reading based off whatever comments we write. So we'll say we want a property that sets the last safe height character fell from. All right, press enter, and we'll get a U property macro line where it's giving us a blueprint read only. And then it gives us the name of the variable, in this case, last safe height. And then there's one more property we want to add, which is property that sets flag if the character is immune from fall damage. All right. So once again, we'll use Copilot's recommendations here. And this time it's recognizing that we want a Boolean and naming it appropriately. So what if I wanted to know like what the different options for these macros are in the specifiers? Like if I wanted to see, like I saw blueprint read only, what else is available?
So this is a very highly requested feature we heard from feedback. In the latest versions of Visual Studio, IntelliSense will now suggest UE macro specifiers. So in this case, let's say you want to type blueprint, and as you type, you can see a whole bunch of options being suggested to you through IntelliSense blueprint read only or read or writes, and we'll even give you a little snippet of what that specifier does. Now, once again, similar to the blueprints feature, this is in gradual rollout, so maybe not all of you have it now, but we expect to complete the rollout in the upcoming weeks, so everyone can go and have suggestions for UE macro specifiers.
All right, cool. So we've now defined our properties. We have our landed function. I think it's time to start cleaning things up and getting this ready for being able to be checked in. What's one of the first things we have to consider?
Yeah, so as good game developers, we should really keep in mind how precious memory is. We just added some variables. Perhaps Copilot Chat can help us see if we can optimize the memory layout.
Yeah, let's just ask it, how can I optimize memory layout of this class? All right, so it's giving me some pretty basic information about like what we may need to do. One thing I am noticing is I didn't specify what I wanted, what file I wanted to reference. So it's actually writing this response based on the Lyra character class. So it's a good reminder that, it always pays to make sure you're very clear on what you're asking Copilot to do and what references you want it to include. But even so, it still gave us kind of useful building blocks for that we can use as a checklist of what we would want to look for to make sure that the class is memory efficient. Things like reordering memory variables, right?
Yeah, we just added a float and a bool, and that's probably not the best way to lay this out. Let's go up to where this class is defined and see what Visual Studio can tell us.
All right. So if I go to the class and hover over it, I can see that it's letting me know that the class right now is 328 bytes. And there's this option for memory layout. If we click on that, I get a nice colorful view.
Don't let the colors distract you, but take a closer look at the end where we newly declare these variables, the float and the bool. So as you can see here, the enum before the float is only size of 1 byte. We can really save a whole 8 bytes of memory if we were to reorder the variables. So let's do that in Visual Studio.
Yeah. All right. So if we jump back to our header, and like you're talking about, all you really need to do is just move the definition of our Boolean up above the float, and that should change the layout. So now if we find our class again, hover over it, and I remember before when we looked at this, it was 328 bytes. So I can already tell that what we did is improving. We're saving 8 bytes just from that simple movement. And if we look at the memory layout view, I can see that, yeah, our Boolean now moved up into this slot right after the enum and isn't stranded there on its own row, right? Perfect. So I think we can close that. And there's a few more things that I think we want to take care of before, this change is totally done and ready for us. The first thing is making sure that we have telemetry. So if I'm using PlayFab as the system for capturing any kind of in-game telemetry, I can go back to our landed function and let's ask Copilot this time to generate code for me to fire a PlayFab telemetry event whenever the character lands from a jump. All right, we'll see what it comes back with. So this is interesting because, PlayFab is an external library that, it's impressive that it's recognizing what it is, and it has the information about how to integrate it, how to add that telemetry event. So if we hit accept, you can see we get our telemetry manager, and it's going ahead and recording our event and gives us some basic information about like the default that we want. So in this case, labeling it character landed. I can see that I don't have PlayFab SDK available right now, and so that's why it's showing up as the red squiggly line. So we can just comment that out for right now and come back to that later. But the last thing that we would need to do before checking in any of this code is write tests. Now, I saw the option to go ahead and generate unit tests. Can I really just select my function here and have Copilot generate tests for me?
Yeah, that's a great example of how Copilot can help you. So as good game developers, we really can't check into code without having a test for it. So let's get Copilot to help us.
So I selected the function that we want to create unit tests for, and I see under here, tests, create unit tests for selected code. So we'll just give that command. And I don't think we really need to specify anything else. So let's go ahead and run that. And That's really cool. I can tell from its response that it picked up that we're using Unreal Engine's testing framework. So it's giving us back a response based on that and understands that testing framework. And we have, a full test suite for our landed function based on some default behavior with the option to insert this into a new file.
Yeah, we can actually see how these tests are in Visual Studio. This is one of the newer components. If you add Unreal Engine Test Adapter, all your Unreal Engine tests will start showing up in the Test Explorer. You can go to the Test Explorer by going to Test, then Test Explorer, or pressing the hotkey Control E and then T. So as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of tests here already. But let's say we finish the project, we build it, and then rerun the tests, and the newly added tests will then show up here.
Awesome. So I think with Copilot, then, we've really gone through the whole experience of, fixing the problem, understanding the code, writing tests, writing comments, integrating with third-party libraries. All of it was made just really easy through having Copilot there to help assist me.
Yeah, and you can do it, all of it with, doesn't matter if you're using Perforce or GitHub. Copilot work great.
All right. So let's jump back to our presentation.
Yeah, we walked through a lot of great features in Visual Studio, showcasing performance, how to use build insights. We give some great examples of how to save those very precious memory using memory layouts, some new Unreal Engine integrations, but of course, how GitHub Copilot can help you modernize your workflow. And all of these capabilities are aimed so that you can really increase your productivity and creator velocity. Now, before we end, I do have one more announcement, and that is Visual Studio is now supporting direct editing of UE project files. This is a new preview feature. You can find out more in aka.ms/direct Unreal supports. So you don't have to regenerate a solution every time you add a file anymore. This is a very experimental feature for now, but the team is hard working on it. So please go try this out. We're definitely looking for more feedback on how we can improve this whole experience. Today, it is available for UE 5.4, but UE 4.27, 5 through 5.3 back compatibility is coming soon.
All right. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up. So I really want to thank everyone for joining us and spending some time to learn more about some of the game dev recent improvements for Visual Studio and GitHub Copilot. You can visit the link here below for more information about some of the announcements in the blog post that David published around GDC.
Yeah, we have a lot of great information that we have recapped around GDC. So for all of you Pure Virtual attendees, please go to the link. We have a roundup blog about all the game developer features, as well as more information about Copilot. Thank you.